And welcome guys to day number 2 of the FIDE World Cup 2025, and I had my second game today against Romanian Grandmaster Constantin Lupulescu, and typically I don't spoil the result, but I was able to win my match and my game today, so I think it's a great exception to spoil the result now, and therefore I can also maybe reveal some of my match strategy and some of my feelings during the game without having to be careful not to spoil or anything. If you missed my yesterday's recap from round number 1, I will give you a quick summary of what happened there. Obviously, I had the black pieces yesterday. It's always the colors are changing so that it's fair. And I was completely lost yesterday. My opponent caught me off guard in the opening, and he played a line which he has never played before, the fried liver. I got into a very difficult position out of the opening right away, and then ended up in a lost rook endgame, but managed to put up quite a good fight, managed to find some resources, and in the end managed to save a draw, which was extremely important, obviously, for the match. I had the feeling that it might go down like my first World Cup 2 years ago, where I also lost the first game with black, then managed to bounce back with white, and then it also continued like this in the tiebreak for a while. And so I did not want that to repeat, because I mean then the pressure is just immense. And obviously yesterday, since I was able to hold a draw, I had the feeling that it must have been a very unpleasant situation for my opponent, because if he would have won, it would have put him in a great position. And now it must have been quite a disappointing result for him, and he has to play with black today. And I already had some games against him before the World Cup. Mostly I had the white pieces. I think we played 3 games before. I had 2 times white and 1 times black, and 1 time black. All of the games ended in a draw, but with white I was always pushing quite a lot and had quite some chances in both of those games. So it must have been a pretty unfortunate situation for him, or unpleasant situation. So it was my goal for today, really just to try and get a fight, because I had the feeling that he must have had a pretty bad night, maybe even worse than mine. Just a small info here. I have a horrible time trying to get some sleep here. Today I was only able to fall asleep at 4:30 local time, because I'm still with the jet lag. It's quite difficult for me, but then I just slept until 12. I skipped the breakfast and prepared for 1 or 2 hours, and then just went to the game. So this is how it was every day here. I was not able to sleep before 3 a.m. So I hope this is gonna change. The time difference to Europe is 4.5 hours, so therefore it's difficult for me to sleep early. Anyway, I think I've talked enough about those things, and it's time to move on to some chess. So I decided to play e4 in that match. Mostly in this year I've played d4, c4, knight f3, so I thought that it would come sort of as a surprise that I go for e4, even though it's still my main move in the online database. That's kind of how chess is developing, that you need to be able to play every single serious first move, so that includes e4, d4, e4, d4, c4, and knight f3. So I'm always kind of switching it up. My opponent played c5, which I expected, of course. Sicilian is his main weapon. I played knight f3, but now he completely surprised me with g6, which I can now tell you honestly, because he was always a player of. He always played or mostly played the classical Sicilian with d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, and knight c6. So this is what he's typically going for. Not that I necessarily would have gone for d4. This is something I will not. This is something I will not yet reveal. Maybe it's going to be important for my next game. But he completely surprised me with g6. This I can tell you honestly, and therefore I spent a few minutes and then decided just to go for bishop c4 here. The funny thing about this is that in the Champions Chess Tour, in the in the clutch chess, which just concluded a couple of days ago, I saw only one game by Fabiano Caruana against Hikaru Nakamura. And honestly, I did not really remember anything whatsoever from that game. I just saw that, well, I think that Fabi won the game, and I think it went bishop g7, short castle, and here Hikaru, I think, played e6. And then Fabi went for something like this, and then played with c3. So this is all I could have sort of remembered here. But it made somewhat of an impression to me, and therefore I just decided to go for that. The thing is that, of course, I could go for the accelerated dragon here or the Marozzi, but yeah, I simply did not prepare for that, for that game. And he could have, I mean, I guess that he would have played this line with queen b6, which is very topical nowadays. And well, for a second I was thinking, okay, I didn't sleep that great tonight, and okay, let me just play like this. But then again, I remembered that okay, my opponent is probably going to be quite upset still from yesterday, and I should not give him this chance to get away with the draw so easily. So I just decided to go for bishop c4, and here I was also trying to compare actually the lines with the English, because there is also this line, bishop g2, bishop c5, and white typically goes knight c3, black goes c6, e3, d5. I think it goes something like this. And here black is also extremely solid, and white has no real hopes of getting an advantage, maybe a little bit. There was actually also one game yesterday, I think it was Moldovan player Lashkin against Tin Yingyao in the World Cup as well, which also ended in a draw here. But I'm also not such a huge expert in that line, so trying to compare this did not bring me so much either. So he went knight c6, very logical. Now I went c3. This is the only way I can try and play for an advantage. If I go for d3, black will just develop with d6, knight f6, short castle, and should be completely fine. Also, that is playable. Like nowadays, also against the Najdorf, against d6, many people play bishop c4. Maybe that was also my plan against him, who knows. And the positions tend to be quite similar, but here white, objectively speaking, does not really have an advantage. So, but of course, what could be a difference here also is that black does not necessarily have to go for d6, but could maybe go e6, knight e7, and d5. This could be an extra option for him. So I went c3 with the idea of getting d4 in with one move, not wasting a move on d3 first. He went e6, which I thought was very logical. Here I went d4. I guess I could have also played rook e1, but I thought if rook e1, knight e7, if I go d4 here, it's not entirely clear if I need rook e1 in all of those lines. And after c takes d4, here I took with the knight, which I think is the only real way to fight for something in this position. Because if I take with the pawn, I thought he would just go d5, take, and wherever I go, I guess bishop b3 is the most natural. I thought he would go knight e7, then if he can, he would go bishop g4. And I thought that the position should just be equal. I mean, maybe something like, well, h3 first, short castle, knight c3. Should not be anything special for white. And also black has some ideas to pressure the pawn on d4, so he's not without any counterplay either. So I took on d4. Now my idea was if he takes on d4, c takes d4, I was actually thinking that he might go for this now d5, but at least in this version I don't have the knight on f3 and he does not have the knight on c6, which I thought was very much in my favor because, well, now he does not have an extra power to attack the d4 pawn. My opponent also told me after the game that he was actually more worried about something like bishop b5, bishop d7, queen a4. And if knight e7, then rook e1. We were just quickly talking about this, a6. I proposed this move, bishop d7, queen e7, and then queen b4. And here we realized that it's probably quite dangerous for black because he cannot castle. I did not check that yet, but let me quickly see. d5 is actually the best move. Bishop b3 is possible here as well, but this is what he was scared of, justifiably so. I mean, it does look scary, rook e1, but apparently it's okay. He can take and go queen d7. Now what's the difference? Queen b4. He can just go f6 here and then king f7. And computer is giving zeros here. because the king is going to be very solid on f7, and yeah, also in the long run, I do have the bad bishop. I mean, I'm nowhere near to being worse here, but just saying that this could be a problem, that I have the worse bishop than him. But of course, as I said, I could go bishop b3 as well, and there I am at least a little bit more pleasant. But he went for the move a6, which surprised me a little bit. I thought that knight e7 would be more natural. What he was trying to avoid was knight b5, but I don't think that I would have gone for that anyway, because I was not entirely sure if my knight is actually so great on d6. The other question is, well, d5, maybe he was thinking about this. I can grab the pawn with the idea that if he takes, I can take back with the queen, and in the end I'm gonna win back the queen with the pawn up. I guess black should still have some compensation here with the bishop here. It's not so easy to figure that out during the game. But what I was mostly unsure about was if he goes just short castle, and I was not sure if my knight is actually that great on d6. I mean, it looks nice, but I did lose some time with that, and if he finds a way to exchange it, or even to find some active play with f5, I was not 100% sure, even though now I look at it, of course it looks incredibly pleasant for white. So that's why he played a6 here. I went bishop e3. When I was checking with my phone for 1 second, I saw that rook e1 is the best move, with the idea to bring back the bishop to f1. But as I said, I think that Fabi played something along those lines with bishop e3. And also this is kind of a typical way of playing those Sicilian positions with the knight on d4, to play bishop e3 and then knight d2. Now he played d5, which really surprised me a bit. I thought that he would go knight e7, which looks more natural. I was even considering knight f6 here as well. After knight e7, I thought that maybe it's time for me to take here. Obviously, I can also play knight d2. I was actually also thinking about taking here. He has to take with the b pawn, otherwise this endgame would be quite ugly for him. I would play a4, a5, his queenside, and all of the squares are weak. So that doesn't look great for him. So I was looking at this, and now queen d6, which also looked interesting for me. But here my issue was queen e7, and I was still calculating here queen c7. If I go to the endgame, I don't have anything whatsoever. Maybe even black can be a bit better with a big center. So I was looking at queen c7. Now, if knight f6, I thought I could get the bishop in somehow, but actually I'm also not sure that this works. Bishop f4, knight takes e4. That's too complicated for me now to consider. Knight takes e4. If f3, there's queen c5. I guess this works out for black. Anyway, I thought that he could also go queen d8 here, and I did not really see anything else than repeating, probably, because now I get a better version of the endgame, but still he's going to get d5 and has to be okay for black at the very least. So that's why I started with bishop e3, and if he goes knight e7 here, then I thought I could take. And if b takes c6, then queen d6, because then he doesn't have the queen e7 option. And I thought that this could be some pressure, because bishop c5 is coming, and he doesn't really have a great way to get rid of the queen on d6. But still, well, in the game he went for d5. I still think that he should have gone for this. Maybe after knight takes c6 he can just take with the knight. Bishop c5 should not be too much of a problem, maybe. Even though if the bishop gets to d6, it also looks a bit unpleasant. So therefore he played d5. I'm not sure. I guess knight e7 should be the best, but yeah, it's not so clear at this point. Knight f6, yeah, this is what I was about to say. This is the best move, it seems. I was also considering this here, and I was mostly calculating knight takes c6. Knight d2 is also possible, but after knight d2 I thought he could go d5, and e takes d5, knight takes d5. Even though here I can take here and put my bishop to c5, so maybe this is not 100% clear. Well, he could also take e takes d5, of course, in this position. But I was also considering to take here now, b takes c6, e5, and now knight d5, bishop d4. I was looking at this position for some time, and I wasn't sure if I get two more moves, knight d2, knight d4, I'm just clearly better strategically. Maybe even borderline winning, because if I get the knight to c5 or d6, he cannot move any of his pieces. But I thought if he gets c5 quickly, somehow, then it could also go wrong for me. I was looking at, for example, queen c7. Now attacking the pawn on e5. I thought I could maybe go f4. With the point that if he goes c5, now I cannot go back because f4 is hanging, but I thought I can take here, take back, and now bishop f2. I was not sure about any of this. I mean, he does have the bishop pair, which could be dangerous for me, but I thought I have some ideas on the dark squares, but it doesn't actually look so... it's very concrete here. But it should be fine with the bishop pair. Like at some point, black should probably also be able to sacrifice the pawn, play c4, queen c6, something like that. Yeah, let me quickly check this with the computer. I thought worst case I could also go knight e2, and I should not be worse in this position either. But I was certainly looking at e5 here. Yeah, both is possible. e5, knight e5, bishop d4. It's very complicated. Queen c7, f4 is possible here. So actually the line I was showing was pretty good. Here I'm better. Just c takes d4. If c4, knight c5 I have, and then I can maybe trade off the bishop. And if queen c6, I guess I have d5, which is important. Also queen g4 is possible. But d5 is just leads to an endgame with a pawn up for me. So I guess this was critical. bc6. I will stop with this in a second, just because the game did not only feature an opening but also a middle game. Also interesting, I thought, was to take bishop d5, c takes d5, and then to go for this position, which I thought could also have some venom, and it turns out that this was actually correct, because he does not have a great way to activate this bishop, and I'm just gonna play for the dark squares, like f4, knight d2, knight f3, and I'm just gonna keep the situation in the center, even if he goes d6 at some point. For example, like this. I don't think he wants to take here, because then the f file would open up. So I think that my calculation and understanding here was actually quite okay. Anyway, he went for d5. I took, which apparently is not the best. Well, it is. Just a mistaken evaluation. E takes d5, e takes d5. And here I took on c6 after some thought. I thought it looks much more logical here to just play bishop b3 and to play against the IQP. But after knight e7, I did not see how it really continues. I mean, I thought I could play something like knight a3, knight c2, very slow. But I wanted to get my knight to f3 like this with knight d2. But here I thought he could just trade everything here on d4. And if someone is better in this position, it still has to be me, because I have the better bishop. But I thought that I would not really get anywhere here. It turns out that I am better after moves like knight a3, but I thought that here at least he's extremely solid, and it's gonna be a bit easier for him to hold the position. After my move knight takes c6, b takes c6, I went bishop d3 back. And it might look quite unlogical now to, as I said, to get rid of his IQP, but the thing is now the c5 square is weak, and also his pawn structure is still quite bad. It reminded me of this Scotch 4 Knights, which also features the same pawn structure. And also his bishop on g7 is not that great, because then the dark squares here, especially the c5 square, is quite weak. He went knight e7, which apparently is inaccurate. My phone was telling me earlier already that knight f6 is better, but I still don't know how exactly, because if I go bishop c5 just over the board, it looks quite scary for him. Still not sure actually how the computer defends this. He just plays bishop e6, knight d7, and keeps the bishop here. But yeah, I thought this was quite difficult for human to do, and also it looked quite strange. Something like this just looks pretty dangerous for black. Computer says he's fine with even something like bishop f8, but yeah, this is definitely more pleasant for white in a practical game. He went knight e7, which he played quickly, also extremely logical. Bishop c5, short castle, knight d2, rook e8, rook e1. And here knight f5 was already a wrong move, objectively speaking, but the computer's move bishop f5 is quite difficult, and I still don't really understand it. Because now I can just take on e7, rook takes e7, bishop f5, and he just has this pretty bad pawn structure. I guess this was still the lesser evil for him, objectively speaking, but when he has the weak king for a long time, his pawn structure is weak, so yeah, I don't think anyone would go for this move in a game. He went knight f5. His problem then was actually this knight on f5, because it does not really have many great squares to go to. I went queen a4, which is a good move, attacking the pawn on c6. Bishop d7, knight f3, just bringing the knight into the game. Rook takes c1, rook takes c1, and now queen c7. And here I spent some time, and I'm very, very content with the move I played in the end. It's not a special move or anything, but I think it was a great decision, both practically speaking and also objectively speaking. I played the move h3. Now you might ask, well, that's yeah, just a normal move, but still those small moves, improving the position slightly, are typically quite nice to make and unpleasant for the opponent, because he was probably thinking that I would take here, and I think that this is a move which I would maybe play in a blitz game, or many players. I mean, I also considered it for a long time, and I was quite close to actually playing it, because it looks incredibly good for me, because I get the rook to e7 next. But I was not entirely sure here. Actually, before we go to that, I should also mention that the same move is also possible here, bishop takes f5. Because if he takes back with the bishop, then I have queen takes e6. But I was actually not sure about this position with g takes f5, because now his pawns are sort of protected, and if I move with the knight, then all of a sudden he gets quite a lot of activity with rook to e4. Yeah, it was also possible to take here, objectively speaking, but I was not 100% sure about this. It also gave me a big advantage here, to be fair. Here I could also take like this, but I was just not sure, because if I go for this, I need to find something immediately. Otherwise, black is just completely fine, because I got rid of my bishop pair. And I just could not fully figure out the variations. I was looking at this, queen c8. Now I was mostly calculating knight e5, bishop f8, knight takes e6, and I thought probably it's good for me, but yeah, it could easily be that at some point there would be bishop d7 and I lose to the pin. So I just did not, yeah, I didn't fully trust my calculation here. Computer also comes up here with some insane moves like g5 or d4, and apparently it's around equal. Of course, the point is that bishop d7 immediately does not work, because I can take queen takes d7 and knight d7 with the discovered check, and I'm winning the queen. Yeah, if g takes f5 here, I thought it should be just pretty bad, because I have queen h4 and then rook e7 and so on coming. But as I said, I was not entirely sure about this. I don't know if he has to go. Yeah, he has to go for queen c8 here. If bishop d7, there's knight g5. Whoops, that was my mistake. Anyway, after some time, I made the decision just to go for h3, which is going to be a very useful move anyway. I make some luft for my king. And I also have the idea to play g4 sometimes, to ask the knight where it's going. He went h6. It's actually quite difficult for him to find a move. I thought that maybe he could go for a5, just so that the pawn is not hanging anymore. But also here, I mean, I still have the option to go for bishop takes f5. And maybe in some of those variations, h3 is going to be very important, because I have some space for the king. But he went h6. Now, I guess his idea was, if I take now, then h6 is going to be useful. Maybe even he has g takes f5, because now I don't have any more knight g5 ideas. It's still quite bad here at this point. I mean, bishop takes f5 is the move he should play. But he has the option to go bishop d7 back, and I don't have any more knight g5. But I went for the move g4, because I thought his knight does not really have any great squares to go to. I at first wanted to play this move sort of immediately, but then I saw that he actually has the move knight g3, which I think he should have gone for. The point is I cannot take, because then I lose the knight and all of those pawns on the king side, and I would even be losing. And if I go king g2, then he can go knight e4, and all of a sudden he gets a lot of counterplay here, because he gets the bishop to e6 and then to d5, for example. Take with the rook, bishop e6. I was quite scared here to go for that. But then I saw that after knight g3 I have the move knight d2. This is what I wanted to play. And now my next move would probably be to go king g2 or rook e7. And at some point he has to go knight e4. And then I just take with the knight. And I still have both bishops, and therefore my king is going to be quite safe. So something like this should just be basically a pawn up for me. But he went back with the knight to d6 quite quickly as well. I went queen to f4, and here he played knight b5. Here he was spending some time, so I guess what happened was that he must have missed something here after I played queen f4. Maybe actually my next move after knight b5 that I have knight e5, which was quite strong. But apart from that, he doesn't really have any great moves left in this position. I thought bishop f8 is a move, but it also looks incredibly passive. He doesn't have knight e8 because then I have rook takes e8 with a check, and then I'm going to pick up the queen on c7. If bishop f8, I thought there should be many good moves here. Computer says here b4, this is the line given, so I could even just slowly improve my position like this. But I even felt like there could already be a win here with something like queen f6, for example. Queen f6, though there might be knight to e4. I was also looking at knight e5 here. Bishop d4 was another idea with the simple threat of queen f6 or queen e5, and I thought he has to go for bishop g7 in this position. Maybe knight e8 is also possible here. If I'm not missing anything, maybe knight e8 is possible as well. Yeah, queen e5, also rook e8. Yeah. So it's still not a forced win or anything, but I guess I can just slowly improve my position, also something like king g2. Black simply does not really have any active plans, and also endgames often tend to be quite bad because of the a6 pawn. He went knight b5, and now I went knight e5, which I think is a very important move. At first my idea was actually to take on c7 and go rook e7. But here I realized that, well, first of all, maybe he can play rook d8, with the idea that after bishop b6 he has bishop to f8. And if bishop c7, bishop e7, I thought that he probably has pretty good drawing chances here with the bishop pair, even though that is of course still not an easy task, because knight e5 could be coming, those pawns are also could be a bit weak. But maybe he can go f6 or something, bring the king. But the bigger problem was even at this point that he has the move knight e6. And if I take now d7, I'm even losing because he has a fork on my rook and on my bishop. So I was thinking a bit more here about some possible moves like bishop b6, bishop d6, but it all wasn't fully convincing, and then in the end I saw knight e5, which is just basically a killer because his pieces are still extremely uncoordinated, and now f7 is also attacked all of a sudden. He played bishop e6 just to give you some possible alternatives. If he takes on e5, all of the dark squares are going to be weak. Can take with the rook, and something is coming, queen f6 or bishop d4, queen takes h6. Also a4 is there when the knight, as in the game, has to go back to a7. Bishop takes b5 followed by rook e8 is of course the most forcing threat as well, when he's losing the queen because of the discovered check. So he went bishop e6. Also possible, I thought, was bishop e8, but I thought it would be sort of similar like in the game after I go a4. He went bishop e6 and now a4. That was the whole point. Now his knight is kind of running out of squares. If he goes to d6, I thought he should have some discoveries like knight takes g6 should just be game over. Now taking on d6. Or on d6, to be fair, should also be pretty good. So he played the move g5. If he goes knight a7, then I even have knight takes g6, queen takes f4, knight takes a4, which should be very easily winning. I'm not only a pawn up, but his knight is completely out of the game. a6 is weak, and yeah, this should be sort of easy. So he played the intermediate move g5, and now I played queen g3. Actually, here I was spending some time about a4, because I was also thinking about going into this forcing line with knight takes g6, which I also felt like should be pretty good for me. Let me quickly see what the engine is giving. I was calculating fg6, queen c7, knight c7, and now bishop b6 was my main thought. And then I'm winning back the piece, but I was not so sure that this would be so easy to win. I mean, it's a big advantage for me. I thought that maybe even it's a winning advantage, but computer agrees here. It's like +1, but I still need to show some technique. So I thought a4 has to be the right move. His knight has to go back to a7. Still cannot go to d6 because of the discovery. So knight a7, and now this was the key move, bishop c2 in the position, because at first I was still not 100% sure how to break through here. I was looking at ideas with f4, but it's, yeah, he could maybe even take. Should also be extremely good for me. But I was looking for kind of like a clearer plan. I was also thinking about bishop a6, but I thought then he could have some tricks with queen a5. Of course, all of this, I guess, still pretty good for me, many chances, but I didn't want to give him any counterplay whatsoever. And bishop c2 had the very easy idea to just play queen d3 next. And it turns out that he does not really have any great way to defend against that, so of course that was the downside of him going g5. He played bishop f8. I'm not sure what else he can do here. I was thinking about f6 as well. I guess I have many good moves here. I mean, even some endgames like this should now be very often just extremely good for me. But I was looking for the maximum, so I was calculating queen d3, f takes e5, queen h7. And I thought that, well, first of all, I can repeat moves here. I was thinking, though, about some lines like this, which actually I was then... Was it here? Bishop h5? I think I was looking at this and I did not see. Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, e5 now I realized just I have bishop d4. I was, for some reason, looking at this and still thought that there should be checkmate somewhere, but bishop d4 is just easily winning here. I guess this is also the easiest way to win at this point. But there should be other good ways. For example, I was also looking at this, queen g6, queen e6, and here something should be winning as well. Yeah, not entirely sure, but like maybe bishop d6 and then just pick up the pawn on e5. Should all be game over. So he played bishop f8, queen d3, f6 is forced, otherwise it's checkmate on h7. And here I spent more of my time. I was already getting a bit nervous because I was down to 6 minutes, but I wanted just not to mess things up and not to give him any counterplay here whatsoever. And then I just saw the following forcing sequence. Queen g6 check. By the way, before we go to that, I was also considering this move knight g6 at this point, which I also thought should be winning. Bishop c5, rook e6 with many different discoveries, but well, I need to watch out for some tricks with queen g3, with bishop takes f2, so I really wanted to find a forcing win, and I felt like there should be one in the position. So I started with this, queen g6 check, he has to go queen g7, and now bishop takes a7. I also thought that bishop f8 should be quite easily winning here, and then knight takes c6. This should be a one endgame as well. But bishop a7 is just much easier. Now he took back on a7. If he takes on g6 first, I take knight g6 and his bishop on e6 is attacked. Therefore he cannot take back the bishop on a7. So he took with the rook on a7 and then knight takes e6, and his rook is attacked and the bishop on e6. So he traded on g6, bishop g6, and now rook g7, the only way not to lose material immediately, but after rook takes e6, rook takes g6, knight d4, he resigned because, first of all, I'm picking up the pawn on a6. After that, d5 might drop as well, but that won't really matter because I will have those connected passed pawns. And if you play something like a5, I thought it would be quite beautiful just to sort of lock in the rook on g6, which now it's going to take him forever to get it back, but I could also play something like rook a6 and just pick up the pawn, and something like this is just no chance for him to hold it anymore. So that was it for round number 1 of the FIDE World Cup. I'm really happy that I was able to advance to the next round. This is my first time in the second round in the World Cup. As I said earlier, in my first World Cup experience, I dropped out in the first round already. My next opponent is going to be Yu Yangyi from China, who has been a 2700 player for many years. I guess 10 years at the very least. So of course a formidable opponent. I'm going to give my best, that's for sure. Gonna put up a good fight against him. Tomorrow I have a rest day, which is fantastic because many others are gonna gonna play tie breaks and still need to prove that they can advance to the next round, but I can sort of lean back, relax a bit, prepare for the next round, and yeah. So thank you guys for watching this video. Thank you for giving me all of the support. Like always, it was really great to see your encouragement in the comment section about yesterday's game, that I was able to hold it. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'm gonna see you probably after my next game. Maybe I can think of something for tomorrow as well, but yeah, I'm gonna see you at the very least after my game against Yuan Yi. Thank you guys, and catch you soon.